My name is Scott, and I want to take over the world. But this channel is going to be about me and my journey to start a farm. I got this idea in my head, and now I'm going to run with it. So welcome to the Scott Learns Farming YouTube channel. First, Scott. Once again, that's me, and I grew up in a few different places around the country. Currently live in LA as a software developer. I work in the visual effects industry, so I help create tools and systems to help make movies and TV shows. And I really like my job. I enjoy the work I do. I enjoy the people I work with. The problems are challenging. It's a fulfilling career. But I've realized I can't do this for another 30 years.
I gotta get out of here!
So this idea to start a farm has kind of been brewing in my head for a few years now. Honestly, back in the day, when I was a little kid, I used to say I wanted to be a farmer. So maybe this is all coming full circle now. But, as I grew up and went to college, kind of forgot about all of that and really focused on engineering and computer science. And that's how I ended up where I am now. A few years ago, I went with my homebrew club to a dairy farm in New Jersey. And seeing their setup really started kicking some ideas around in my head. The owner used to be an engineer himself. He used to work in the city. That's where he met his wife. And then the two of them decided, you know what, let's start a dairy farm. So they moved out to Jersey, got some cows, and now they make their own cheeses and meat products. They have a whole farm shop that is a bakery where she bakes bread. And it was just really cool to see, oh, hey, this is someone who did something similar to what I was doing. And they were able to make this transition. After that experience, I kind of had this idea of maybe I'd wind up on a farm one day, but it would kind of be like a way in the future, close to retirement type of thing, once I had, done the life that I had already set up. And then last year, an interesting development happened where I ended up watching Clarkson's Farm on Amazon, which is a show following Jeremy Clarkson and his own transition into becoming a farmer. Now, I realize it might be a little silly to watch the shenanigans of a millionaire and his journey into farming and have that be some sort of inspiration. But I really appreciated the transparency of the show to be like, yeah, it's Jeremy Clarkson having a good time, but here's also the hard realities of farming, whether it be the bureaucracy, the weather, the money, because it's crazy expensive. And it was really cool to see that firsthand. Because then the second part of this was kind of at the end of the show. They're like, well, Jeremy, do you want to keep being a farmer? Do you want to go back to your regular life? And he's decided to stick with it. And he had mentioned, this is the happiest he's, ever been. And yeah, something like that is something I feel drawn to myself. And I think I would like that. And so watching that show kind of brought the idea of a farm back to the forefront of my mind. But I was really still thinking of it as kind of like a far-off thing, a possibility, but nothing for the immediate future. And then I started watching this YouTube channel called Goldshaw Farm, where Morgan Gold is starting a farm in northern Vermont, and it just follows his day-to-day and that entire process. And watching that and seeing, okay, this is a guy who came from the city, who's making the decision to do this with his life, it was really inspiring, especially to see, just the little bit that he's learning, the little bit that he's improving, improving himself, improving the farm. And I realized, this is something that if I really want to do it, I need to act on it now. And I say now, but the reality of my personal, professional, and financial situation is it's going to be a few years before this actually happens. My initial plan right now is that sometime in the next 5 to 8 years, I'll get onto a farm, but continue to work in the industry that I'm in, visual effects, software, remotely from that farm, and then in the free time that I have, slowly start building things up. And so then hopefully over the next 5 to 8 years after that, I can develop a business, quit my remote working job, and have this farm be my full-time career. So now, farming. I'll get back to the learning section in a little bit, but I really want to talk about both why I want to do this as well as what I want to be doing with this venture. Because aside from the 3 things that I mentioned that were kind of like my inspiration, I've dug through hundreds of hours of YouTube videos and documents and classes at this point just to kind of get a better understanding of farming, because quite frankly, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no farming experience. and I really need to be learning this as I go, which is, part of the name of the channel.
Confession, I don't know what I'm doing.
When you start investigating this space, you see a lot of overlap in terms of gardening and homesteading and farming, and because all of those things are kind of a scale onto each other. So I'll definitely be starting with gardening, but that's not going to be my end-all be-all. It's really more just a stepping stone in terms of, that'll be incorporated into what I'll eventually be doing and part of my learning process on the way. And then you get to homesteading, but I feel like as much as I like those ideas of, self-sufficiency and they have really good, practices, uh, I feel like, by definition, that's more about taking care of yourself and your family, whereas I definitely want to be building a business that is, helping to serve the community, hopefully can be educational as well, and can grow upon itself over time. But not a farm business that's like, the classic big red barn, hundreds of acres of corn and soybeans. Probably I don't want to do anything at that scale, period. But then also a lot of what I've been learning through some of these videos are things like regenerative agriculture, permaculture, soil ecology, and what seems to me like might be better practices, more sustainable. And while I'm still going to be learning about all of that and traditional farming as I go, from my initial endeavors into this space, they all talk about, building ecosystems, building systems that can interlock and work with each other to produce really good results. And honestly, coming from a engineering and software design background, those ideas were really attractive to me. Building systems and having interdependencies and understanding, the big scope of things. That's part of what I already do for my job. And so seeing similar sets of systems in this kind of agricultural space was not only surprising, but really exciting for me because I feel like that's something I am already gravitating towards. That's already something that I could, dive into and know how to wrap my mind around. And those kind of things, I think, are good not only for, sustainability in the environment, but would be good for a business overall. And I mean, all in all, at the heart of this, I'm really feeling a calling kind of back to the land. Even though there are similarities in the principles and structures for some of these regenerative agriculture ideas and what I do in software, I think I get a lot of satisfaction with working with my hands, with caring for plants and animals. I do want to get out of the rat race, as it were, as cliche as that is. But yeah, mostly that I feel like, different aspects of my life and experiences have kind of been pointing me towards this as like the thing that I should be doing. And it's also a sense of, trying to be environmentally responsible and being able to make a difference in the world, hopefully. And even, a bit of a legacy, leaving something behind for future generations, be that, better planet or, a big orchard that has, trees that are decades old and can sustain people for years to come. So to paint a picture of what I want to end up at, right now in my head I'm thinking a farm nestled in some hills, nice rolling hills, with anywhere from 20 to 200 acres, ideally parts of that being forested so I can have that integration with nature. And the very first thing I would want to get on the farm would be bees, and maybe have some fields of flowers, wildflowers to support them. And it would be a nice relaxing, hobby integration with the farm life to not take up too much of my time while I'm still working my regular job. Next would probably be chickens. Just for eggs at first, a handful of chickens to learn how to take care of them and develop, a system for that. And then the next thing, and probably most important for the first phase of the farm, would be setting up a type of like permaculture orchard with fruit and nut trees, some hardwoods, some various shrubs and bushes, just things that will require a long time in terms of reaching maturity and full productivity, but then can also, help establish an ecosystem on the land. Also part of the process of kind of like midway into learning how to work a farm, getting everything established, I would probably want to get a couple cows, both for meat and dairy, because I would like to explore making my own cheeses. I think that's something I would really enjoy doing. And once I have all of these things working together, I think this would be the point where I start to look to scale things up. Expand the permaculture orchard, expand the number of chickens I have, expand the number of cows I have, as long as all those systems are solid and working. And then in order to make this a business, probably open some type of farm shop where I can have all of these different products, but then attached to the farm shop would be a brewery, because I currently make my own homebrew, mead, beer, cider, and I would really like to transition that skill set into the business in some capacity. I don't know how big it would be, but I would figure having the bees for the honey, having the fruit from the orchard, I'd be able to have that vertical integration to have all of my, inputs, put it into the brewery, and then have a nice little shop with, your cheeses, your eggs, your alcohol, your fruit, all of these things working together to build up this business. So then finally, learning, which I've touched on quite a bit already, just because there's significant overlap between all of these aspects. But there's also kind of the question of why YouTube. And to be honest, it kind of goes back to the Goldshaw Farm YouTube channel. His documenting his entire process throughout this was really inspiring to me. It's the type of content I like to consume. And I think doing that myself or using it as a model for what I'm trying to produce will be just, kind of my way of giving back to the community in the space, because maybe people out there will be interested in following my own journey. But in actuality, there is a big component of me just doing this for myself. It'd be really cool to look back on all of this, years from now and see both how I started, what my own journey was, and if I got to where I was trying to get to. It'd be a cool thing to leave for, any kids that I might have one day. Kind of like a video diary. I believe they call those vlogs, but anyways, a diary of my own journey through all of these things, and just kind of a way for me to organize my thoughts, a way for me to organize my research, and really focus in on the things that I'm trying to learn in this process. But then finally, I do want to be really transparent with everything that's involved with going on this journey. Because I feel like, sometimes on social media, people like to paint very rosy pictures, and I'm not about that life. You're going to see it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And most importantly, I'm going to be covering everything that is involved with starting a farm and going on this crazy journey. And I mean everything. I will always try to turn it towards, farming and the process of starting a farm. But just like sustainable agricultural practices that, talk about building ecosystems, everything's connected. And just because, this might not be a finance channel doesn't mean I won't talk about finances as it pertains to starting a farm or a business, or, politics that affect agricultural, practices and restrictions and things like that. It's going to be very holistic in its approach, just because as I've been going into all of these things, there are a lot of components to farming, and I think it's good to cover all of it. So I hope you've enjoyed this introductory video, getting to know a little bit about myself and what this channel is going to be all about. I'm really excited to start this process, this journey, and to share it with anybody who might care to follow.
Sean, let the journey begin.
Thank you.
With that said, if you are interested, please like, subscribe, and you can keep those updates coming. This is the first and only time I'll say that, because it's 2022 and we all know how social media works. But then before I go, one more thing. It's very important. This is Reese, my #1 girl. She's definitely going to be the mascot of the channel here. The only reason people will really want to watch. Because she's adorable. Not that she would ever be working as a barn cat, because she's the queen and lives indoors all day. And I've touched on a lot of different topics in this video. I'll probably do more videos in the future where I go into some of the terms I have mentioned in detail. because again, I'm still learning this as I go. Once again, welcome to the Scott Learns Farming YouTube channel, and I hope you enjoy following along with whatever I'm going to be doing over these next few years.